When I was a girl, I was walking with my Grandma Brown to the corner market, and we walked by this bench by a bus stop, and there was a teenage boy and girl, and they were doing a lot of kissing. And Grandma, she took a hold of my hand and hurried me forward, and she said, "Lynn Ann," I knew it was serious because she was using my full name. "Lynn Ann, if ever you are with a boy and have an urge to do something wrong, eat an orange instead." Now, I was 5 years old at the time, and the only unholy urge I ever felt when I was with boys was to slug Mike Faulkner whenever he was obnoxious. For the next 5 years that I lived across the street from Mike, I ate a lot of oranges. But that's how it was with Grandma Brown. She would say things that half the time I didn't have a clue what she was talking about, but I would try to understand, and I would really listen carefully. When I was 6 years old, my older sister Pammy and I, we rode a train from our home in California up to Salt Lake City to visit Grandma and Grandpa, and the first week or so, it was fantastic. A wonderful time, and then I woke up one day and I just felt achy and my tired, and I was out of sorts, and Grandma, she set me down in this kitchen chair, and she had me follow her finger with my eyes, and then she probed my neck, and she said, "Just as I thought. You're homesick." Homesick? Do I have a temperature? And she said, "No." Do I have to take medicine? She said, "Well, the best medicine would be your mom and dad, but they won't be here for another week or so, so I guess I'll just have to be your medicine." And she took me into the front room, and she sat down in her overstuffed chair. Now, Grandma Brown was 5 feet 2 inches tall and about 5 feet 1 inch wide, and when she sat in that chair, she filled it completely. And I climbed up into her lap and sank into the deep, soft folds of her body, my head nestled between her bosoms, and listened to her voice vibrate through her chest as she told me her secrets to making the perfect meatloaf. Grandma was a really good cook. Why she picked that moment to give me her meatloaf recipe, I can't say, but it kind of worked. I didn't really take all of the homesickness away, but I became hungry enough that I did go into the kitchen and set the table while she made dinner. In Grandma's room, on the dresser, there sat 3 prisms. They were all shaped, each one of them were shaped like pyramids, and they were different sizes, and I was fascinated by them. Only with permission, I would pick up one. It was usually the smallest one, about 3 inches tall, and I would hold it up to the sunlight that filtered into the room, and the rainbows would streak across the wall. And I asked Grandma, where do the rainbows come from? And she told me that those prisms were stuffed full of colors, and when the sunlight hit it, it pushed the colors out. Now that made sense. Well, the next spring, I was in the 2nd grade, and my mom pulled me out of school, packed up my baby brother and me, and she drove the 3 of us up to Salt Lake City. Grandma was sick, and Mom was to take care of her. Now, first time I saw Grandma sick, I wasn't sure it was her. She was propped up in her bed with about 50 pillows, it seemed like, around her, and her body wasn't round anymore. It was sharp angles. Her skin hung on her face. Her hair was thin. Her voice was thin. She said, "Lynn Ann, come here." And I slowly edged my way over, and she said, "Take some of these pillows, put them in that chair, and so you can sit on them so I can see you. We have things to talk about." Grandma told me that she was sick. I asked her, why did she have to be sick? And she told me so other people didn't have to be sick. You know, if I ever see my Grandma Brown again, I'm going to ask her what in the world she meant by that, because I still don't get it. Well, there's a couple of months left in the school year, so my mom took me down to the local elementary school at Forest Elementary. Big old red brick building, and my mom went to school there. And she enrolled me to finish off the second grade. Now, being a new kid in the school, it's never easy. Being the new kid at the end of the year, I made friends, but I never felt like I fully belonged. It was as if all the kids were over there and I was watching them through a window. I'd go home, and after school I would visit with Grandma, and I'd tell her about my day, and she'd ask questions. And one day I told her about the big school program they were going to have. It was a big deal at Forest Elementary. It's their end-of-the-year program, and they'd already assigned out all the speaking parts, but they were going to hold auditions for the singers and dancers. Well, Grandma, she just kind of lit up, and she said, "When's your audition?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And she said, "Well, you're always singing and dancing around the house." I said, "I know, but what if they don't like me?" And Grandma straightened up off those pillows, and she leaned forward and she said, "Lynn Ann, when you are trying something new, it means you're living. And when you fail at those new things, it means you're trying. I wish I had more time to fail. But you, Lenny, you go out and fail as many times as you possibly can." Well, later that week, I ran home from school as fast as I could. I was so excited. I had tried out for the big school program, and I had failed miserably. Couldn't wait to tell Grandma. But I was stopped short at her bedroom door. My mom and the doctor and my grandpa were talking, and they told me that Grandma had taken a turn for the worse. And I thought, well, why doesn't she just turn around and come back? But she didn't come back. I would go in and I'd try to visit with her, but she'd be mumbling or sleeping, or sometimes she would raise her hand as if she was picking things out of the air. So I slid off the pillows and walked over to the dresser, and without permission, I picked up the smallest prism, carried it over to her bed, and I held it up so she could see the colors. After Grandma's funeral, I was with my mom, and we were sitting together on Grandma's bed. It was all made up, and the pillows had been put away. And my mom said, "Lynn Ann, so it was serious. Grandma wanted you to have this." And she put in my hand the smallest prism. I wish I had this prism to show you. It was a prized possession. I kept it up on my dresser. When people would come for visits, I would show them the rainbows. And when I'd go outside sometimes, I put it in my pocket. But one of those times it must have fallen out. So now it's just a memory of that prism stuffed full of colors. It's a memory that sits right beside the echo of Grandma Brown's voice telling me to fail as many times as I possibly can. And I have.